Karl Anthony Towns is now a New York Knick. In a deal with the Wolves, the Knicks sent Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo west to join the Timberwolves, in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns and a first-round pick from the Pistons. So let's find out just how much better this Knicks team will be, what their new starting five will look like, and what the trade means for the rest of the Eastern Conference. First, what instantly comes to mind for me is how the Knicks just solved their center depth issue. Only a week and a bit ago, I made a video explaining just how good I thought the Knicks were going to be before this trade. And this is how I ended the video. At this point, the health concern around Mitchell Robinson might just be their most important question coming into next season. As if Robinson has to be sidelined again, it could decide their entire season if they don't sign another center before now in the trade deadline. With a center rotation of Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, that issue has certainly been solved, as a weakness just turned into a strength. Last season, the Knicks' big man rotation of Robinson and Hartenstein was great, but it didn't allow much three-point shooting. However, that's no longer the case, as Karl Anthony Towns is not only a great three-point shooter, but he's probably the best big three-point shooter in the history of the league. Just the sheer amount of ways Cat can put a ball through a hoop is incredible. Last season, he averaged 21.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 3 assists on 50-40-87 shooting, which is deadly efficient no matter what position you're playing. Cat has the ability to hurt you at all three levels, as last season he shot 50% from in the paint, 40% in the mid-range, and 40 from 3, which are great numbers again. His shot diet is something we rarely see out of a big man, as here matched up with the guy he just got traded for, he uses jab steps in a guard-like manner to pull the three ball. However, what makes Karl Anthony Towns such a talented offensive player has to do with his ability to still score like a big, here backing down Randle to score at the basket. Similar to Joel Embiid, Cat is so hard to guard because of how unpredictable he is, now using some tough footwork to open up the angle for a long jump hook. Then in the paint, he's still capable of playing bully ball, here knocking down Randle for an easy 2 points. But in the same breath, you can't leave him open beyond the arc, as here off the Conley save, and with Randle out of the picture, he's good enough to knock it down. Cat has an array of mid-range moves that he can get to, here using a floater to score 2, and then moments later, hits the jumper over Williamson. This is the kind of mid-range game I'm talking about with Cat, as here he sizes up Daniels like a guard, only to then use his muscle to get deep into the paint for a hook shot. Now again with Daniels, Cat is able to play through the contact and bank at home. But his outside game is what makes him so good, here making the open 3 thanks to the Rudy Gobert screen. His three-point shot isn't his preference, but if you give him enough space, he's going to keep you honest. Here with the smaller Luka on him and plenty of space, this is the kind of shot selection I'm talking about, as he makes Doncic pay. This play is truly incredible for a big man, as he brings the ball up like a point guard and then gets to a step back 3, which he buries. Coming to a team where they needed more three-point shooting and another big man, this is an ideal situation for both Karl Anthony Towns and the Knicks. This is the kind of offensive game that could propel the Knicks to the next level offensively while still remaining a solid defensive team. On Crafted NBA, Karl Anthony Towns ranks in the 82nd percentile as an overall defender, thanks to his high-level defensive rebounding and solid shot blocking percentage. His main defensive weakness, though, is defending without fouling, and when you don't rank high for deflections either, this is a serious issue. We saw this in the playoffs last season, as he was struggling to even stay on the floor for more than 30 minutes, as he kept getting into foul trouble. Despite this though, his defensive game is still above league average, and Crafted NBA has his most like-to-like defensive player as Aaron Gordon, which is great company. Then when we look into his offensive numbers, they're goofy, as he ranks in the 84th percentile in true shooting percentage, 93rd in shot quality, 75th in offensive rebounding, 81st in offensive load, 83rd in creating open looks for teammates, and 100th in portability, which is good enough to rank in the 89th percentile as an overall offensive player. As good as his offensive game is, it actually isn't better than Julius Randle's, as Randle ranks in the 93rd percentile as an offensive player. However, when you take a deeper look into Randle's numbers, I'd say Cat's a better fit for the Knicks, as his level of shot quality and efficiency are both far better than Randle's, which will make a noticeable difference for the Knicks next season, as Karl Anthony Towns tends to take shots within the flow of a team's offense, unlike Randle, who can often go into a bit of isolation-heavy basketball. Then on defense, Cat is far and away the better defensive player compared to Julius Randle, as Randle's overall defensive rating is in the 22nd percentile, compared to Cat's 82nd percentile ranking. So not only did the Knicks fix their center rotation, but they also swapped Julius Randle for a guy in Cat who is much better equipped to fit into how this Knicks team wants to play, which is to be a hard-nosed defensive team. But now with Cat, the Knicks are not only potentially a better defensive unit, but they also probably got better offensively as well, which is a truly scary thought for the rest of the NBA. With a starting five featuring Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Hart, and Towns, they have two-way versatility all over the floor. With Mikal and OG locking up your two best offensive players every night, along with the two-man game of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, it's no longer a discussion when we're thinking about the second best team in the Eastern Conference, as the Knicks for me are now clearly better than the Bucks and Sixers, and this is coming from a Bucks fan. Also, the Knicks now have an answer for Boston at every turn, as OG and Bridges will guard Tatum and Brown, and now you have Cat to contain Porzingis. But before I predict who I would see coming out of a 7-game series between the Knicks and Celtics, we need to first discuss what a two-man game between Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns could do for this Knicks team. A pick-and-roll play between Brunson and Cat could be the Knicks' best offensive weapon next season, as between the rim pressure that Jalen Brunson applies, along with his shot making, and Cat's ability to score efficiently at all three levels, this action would be incredibly difficult to stop. If you play Jalen Brunson too tight, Karl Anthony Towns can pop to basically anywhere on the floor and feel comfortable to knock down any shot. Then if you give Brunson too much space, he can pull a patented mid-range jumper, blow by you for two, or step back for three, as he has all those options to go to. Now, could this two-man game at its peak be more dangerous than a pick-and-roll of Giannis and Dame at their peak? For me, not necessarily, as Damian Lillard is a better three-point shooter than Jalen Brunson, and Giannis is a better roller than Cat. However, I do believe a two-man game between Brunson and Cat is more versatile, but at its peak, not necessarily better, as Giannis and Dame are both absolutely unstoppable when it comes to shooting and driving. When you look at just how effective Brunson was able to be when using screens from a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein last year, who isn't a great scoring threat, now with Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson might have an explosion of offense next season if they can just get the chemistry down pat. Brunson just came off a postseason where he averaged 32.4 points and 7.5 assists, cementing himself at the bare minimum a top 12 player in the NBA. For a player of this level to then take a $113 million pay cut is truly incredible, and it shows just how much he's committed to winning a title. His offensive game is tough to stop, as Crafted NBA ranks Brunson in the 99th percentile. He can score at all three levels, and a key reason behind his high ranking is because of his offensive load, as last season in the playoffs especially, he was basically the only offensive creator on the floor. But the Knicks were able to go as far as they did because he's so good at creating opportunities for his teammates. While Jalen Brunson isn't the most athletic, he still has a quick first step, which helps him beat defenders off the bounce, which in turn forces defenses to have to send more numbers, giving his teammates open opportunities to score. And now when you consider his teammates are now Mikal Bridges, who just spent 2 seasons as a first option on the Nets, and Karl Anthony Towns, who's been a first option through his career also, this playmaking asset from Brunson just became even more valuable. Mikal Bridges in particular made a name for himself as a solid two-way defensive player in the NBA. In his first 5.5 seasons with Phoenix, he was a third option on offense, averaging 13.1 points, 4 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and 0.6 blocks on 49% shooting. Then after being traded to Brooklyn in the Kevin Durant deal, he stepped up as the Nets' sole offensive leader, averaging 26.1 points, 4.5 rebounds, and a steal on 47% shooting. However, he did struggle in year 2, putting up only 19.6 points on just 43% shooting. Some might be worried about his drop in efficiency in year 2, but returning to a team where he's not going to be the main offensive focus is going to be refreshing for Bridges. Having faced top defenders for 2 years, playing on lesser ones is going to feel like a breeze for Mikal. And if he can continue to contribute on both ends of the floor with good efficiency, he'll be well worth what the Knicks had to pay to get him. Now, with all this in mind, we can answer the question on what kind of chance I would give the Knicks to beat the Celtics if they were in a postseason series. For me, there's no doubt this series goes at least 6 games, as between 2 of the best offenses in the league in New York and Boston, it's going to be a tough, hard-fought series. On one hand, you have the defending champions who have all of the playoff experience in the world and years years of chemistry to back it up, and on the other, you've got a young Knicks team who have shown that they're not going to back down to anybody, and now with the huge additions of Cat and Bridges, they certainly have a better chance to beat them now than they did before the trade. The matchup of Cat and Porzingis will be a talking point of the series, as it's Porzingis versus the team who drafted him, with Karl Anthony Towns there to potentially spoil the show. If OG and Bridges could contain Tatum and Brown, this series is well and truly up for grabs for New York, as long as Brunson isn't getting locked up by White and Holiday. For me, I would still take the Boston Celtics in 7, as I've got no reason to not back the Celtics in after they just won the title. But if I had to give the Knicks a percentage chance to win the series, it'd be like 40%, compared to maybe 10% last season. How much better do you think this New York Knicks team will be next season now that they have Karl Anthony Towns? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.